This is our second session of the day. I'm Eric Schumacher Rasmussen. I'm the editor and VP of Streaming Media and the conference chair. As I said earlier today, at the beginning of each of our Streaming Media Connects, and this is our sixth one, I have always said, next time we'll see you in person. I'm not going to say that again because I don't want to jinx things, but you can save the date. Our next in-person event is supposed to be, will be, we hope it will. We're planning on it, Boston for May of 2022, May 24th to be specific. So you can save the date on that one. Look for more information coming up soon, as well as for a soon to be announced virtual event happening in February as well. We've got a full week planned of panel discussions, presentations, and keynotes covering all manner of topics related to streaming media, OTT, live video production, and anything else you might think of. So I hope you can join as many of those as possible. And obviously the ones that you can't join in person, you can watch on demand on our YouTube channel soon after we wrap things up on Friday. So a couple of housekeeping notes before we jump in. If you have any questions for our panelists as we talk about subscription fatigue, answering the question, are there just too many darn OTT channels? You can put your questions for the speakers in the Q&A tab at the bottom of your screen. The chat will be open, but we ask that you put your questions in the Q&A tab. It's just easier for us to keep track of them if they are there. Also, live transcripts should be turned on. So if you're seeing transcripts at the bottom of your screen and you don't want to see them, you can go down to the bottom of your Zoom window, click on live transcripts and click disable transcript. That will turn them off. I think that wraps things up for the housekeeping notes, except for the fact that we are going to be giving away a $50 Amazon gift card to one attendee of each session. I forgot to announce the winner at the last one. If you were there, rest assured, if you won, you'll receive an email letting you know. But we'll announce that at the end of the hour. And I'd also like to thank our diamond sponsors for Streaming Media West. That's Conviva, Limelight, Signient, and Video Guys. And with that, I'll pass things back over to our producer, Bill Spence, for a quick series of video messages from all of our diamond sponsors. Bill.
In this era of streaming video, we are pioneers, helping make your stories more vibrant. Conviva lives in billions of apps on devices all over the world, measuring trillions of data points each day to provide real-time insights for your content, ads, and social. Conviva. Every stream, every screen, every second.
VideoGuys.com is your source for live production gear, and we can help you start streaming today.
Reach a wider audience and tell your story using equipment like the RGB Link Mini family of 4 HDMI mixers, YOLO Live YOLO Box all-in-one touchscreen mixers, streamers, and recorders, and PTZ cameras and controllers, perfect for productions of all sizes without a large production crew.
Go to VideoGuys.com or call us at 800-323-2325 for help and start streaming today.
Thanks again to our diamond sponsors, and also thank you to Penthera for sponsoring this session. As I said, we're going to be talking about subscription fatigue, and guiding that discussion will be Streaming Media Connect regular Chris Pfaff. Chris, come on and join us. How you doing,
Eric.
Chris? Hey,
I'm great to be here. Thanks again.
Great to have you back. And I'll just pass things over to you because I don't want to take any more time away from the great panelists we've got lined up.
Well, we do. And in fact, I'm going to introduce them one by one. And as Eric said, this is subscription fatigue. Are there too many OTT services? Well, we're going to talk about that and many other things with the likes of Rivka Golomb. Come on board, Rivka. She, of course, is the Senior Vice President at WarnerMedia, and she joins us today from Hudson Yards, WarnerMedia offices. Welcome, Rivka. We also have Jeff Allen today. He joins us from LA. Jeff is the president of ShortsTV. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you.
Also from LA is Paul Pastor, co-founder and chief business officer with Struum. Welcome, Paul.
Good morning.
And last but not least, as Eric mentioned, a sponsor of this session is Jeanne Sachs. She's the VP of International Sales and Business Development with Penthera. Welcome, Jeanne.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Great. So first, a few things, and I want to just throw out some statistics and some research just to sort of set the stage. As you may have read, more than 60% of U.S. households subscribe to at least one SVOD service. That's according to Parks and Associates, while Deloitte now says that the average subscriber in the U.S. pays for 3 such services, and the total cost of all those services is now approaching the cost of a cable TV bundle, whatever that was, right? So the question is whether we're going to see a reduction in subscriptions. Should we expect more bundling of SVOD services with or without your cable subscription? And how can SVOD services prevent customer churn? And these numbers do keep growing. Statista has said that in 2020, of course, pandemic year, approximately 2.13 billion people used OTT worldwide. And Ampere Markets has a statistic out recently that there are now 340 million subscription OTT contracts in the US, which is larger than the entire US population. Pay TV penetration in the US last year dropped below 60% for the first time. Now that's down from more than 80% at the beginning of 2015. So that's a pretty massive shift. And I'm going to turn it over now actually to Jeanne, because Penthera has some interesting research out about OTT subscriber behaviors. So Jeanne?
Yep. I have a slide that I'm going to pull up 1 second, if it lets me. So far, it's not letting me. Hold on. Even though you prepare. Oh, there it is.
It's the way the world works.
Letting me know. Okay, excellent. Can everyone see this?
Yes, we can.
At Penthera, we do research regularly, pretty much globally, around user frustrations, viewing challenges, user behavior. And this was a study that we did in 2021. It was actually a US-based study around what are the streaming frustrations, and with so many streaming services available, what factors really are important to the end user when they're deciding to use one service versus another. And I think the stats are really interesting. Obviously, people really want it to be easy to use. Big surprise there. People really care about buffering. This is something that, it's a big issue at Penthera. We are focused on this challenge as an organization. And what people say is they want their videos to play seamlessly without buffering. That's 41%. They want it to be affordable. They want services to have shows and movies they like. That's 39%. I was surprised by this stat that only 34% care that if they have a mobile app. They want discovery to be easy, and they want to be able to download their videos. So those are the stats around, what factors from our research in the US are important to people when they're talking about what services they're going to subscribe to. And we actually have more information available. We have a whole resources section on our website with studies from all over the world. We do this kind of research globally. Any questions about that? And I will stop sharing.
Great. This is very interesting to see in terms of what people are looking at. Of course, I have a lot of questions in terms of what some of these people are using, but I think it's even globally, that would be a great question to dive into. But I've got a question that I'll throw to everybody, but we'll start with Paul. one of the things that I think is really interesting, because we've seen a huge number of both niche and also major premium OTT services launch globally in the last 2 years. How do you forecast audience tastes, and what level of know-how or AI is involved in that? Paul, you want to speak to that?
Sure. I don't know if I can speak to the specifics of that in terms of being your tastemaker. But what most certainly, Chris, you bring up is a very important point. We saw at the end of last year, Parks and Associates was tracking nearly 300 SVOD services available to U.S. consumers. That's a lot. That's a lot of subscription services. But what we also see is what they're doing is they're serving what we like to call passion verticals, right? They're serving a very specific space. They know who their consumer groups are. So whether that is sitting in Japanese anime, whether it's sitting in documentaries, whether it's sitting in cooking or otherwise. The biggest challenge for these guys, right, is that finding secondary and tertiary consumers who are looking to, who would have an affinity for the content, but may not actually ever get over that subscription threshold, are some of the biggest challenges that from a acquisition standpoint. The second piece is also honestly the ability to scale solutions into the distribution landscape. So you may be able to very quickly launch on, let's say, mobile, an app with a mobile environment and with maybe 1 or 2 television set-top boxes. But your ability to fit into the ecosystem where you can integrate with MVPDs or OEMs or telcos and think about the billing systems and really find that stickiness that ultimately can be very successful for subscription services, that's a much bigger challenge I think we can kind of all address here on the panel today. In terms of what we get to see here at Struum with the aggregation of those services, right, with the 60 plus on today, is we can see that to your point, like how do you think about AI as a tastemaker? What we can see is in the data and how consumers are leveraging our platform to explore content. So what we saw in some of our very initial tests is that consumers, when we promote, let's say, a 30 days and 30 docs special, that they come in and experience documentaries across DocuBay, Docurama, across Docs, across BBC Select, across Magnolia, right, across Magellan. So they're constantly kind of skimming across and looking for the best of the content they can find. And that's part of the reason you use that data to be able to inform future product decisions. One of those decisions we added was a rail in our second rail on our position, which is now around genres and what we call Struum Selects, which is to help consumers navigate and find those very quickly. So we try to find tools to help inform how consumers find and discover some of those passion verticals, but predicting them, I wish I had that skill.
Well, maybe Jeff has some of that. So Jeff, because of course you're in a very interesting position. There aren't that many subscription short content services out there, and I'm guessing, of course, having been around your service, that you keep adding new genres, right? As much as new content. You have a large library. Talk about how you're looking at the either predictive analytics, AI, and how you use that to build and also maintain your subscriber base.
Sure. Passion vertical. It's a great term, and our subscribers and viewers are passionate about short film. And there are a lot of them. There are, I should say, enough of them. And that's when you're playing the niche game, that's really what you're looking for, is a population that you can super serve with stuff that they are craving and stuff that they like. And with us, it is the short film. We are global, and we are the world's biggest and first global network that's both linear and OTT and dedicated to short film. So what we try to do is be the biggest aggregator. We have over 13,000 short films under our licensing umbrella, and we license thousands of short films every year. And so we're really looking to cast the net wide and have it be representative and support the passionate filmmakers that cobble together a crew and cobble together the budget and make the project happen. We're here to support them and elevate them and get their films seen and promoted throughout our networks. And so when we're putting the content together, we aggregate it into, like you'd see at a film festival, a package that makes sense. We might take 5 to 10 short films, put them together in a theme branded or genre branded package, and then serve it up like you would see it if you sat down for a film festival. And we add interstitials that make sense and tell a story throughout. So the short film itself has its own merit, but also can exist in a package with other short films that add value to the whole.
which I love. I think that's a brilliant thing, having been a long time subscriber to the New York Film Festival, which would, for many years, until about 5 or 6 years ago, show short films that somehow had some connection to the feature that they were preceding, which is an amazing human task, and I'm sure is now better aided by AI. But Rivka, WarnerMedia, of course, has a massive amount of content. It is not just HBO Max when it comes to OTT, but what are you looking at from your view in terms of using either, again, human know-how, expertise, machine-based predictions, and of course any AI that you've cooked up in your WarnerMedia labs? To talk about what you're doing in that vein.
Well, I mean, I think we're a little different in the sense that we're a general entertainment service, right? I think
passionate
vertical. And I think our brand promise is quality, right? So whatever genre you're sort of, coming to, that that it's going to be, the quality of HBO or WarnerMedia, in terms of whichever brands you're coming at. And I think, quality and passion. I can't speak to the AI. That's not my area of expertise. So, I don't know what's being cooked up in, the labs anywhere, but I think we've always had a history of, just creating great programming that, sometimes, I don't know if anyone would have predicted the success that some of these shows has brought. And I think, it's elevating and responding as much as it is predicting.
And from the standpoint of how you feature content as well, I mean, you do respond certainly to the larger zeitgeist, but at the same time, the brand is just so strong, and yet needs to be protected. Jeanne, talk about how you.
No, though, Chris, I was going to say one thing is that you're right. Like, maybe it's hard to predict like the thing you're going to green light, right? Or I mean, there's always the stories, right, that we've heard, but I think that's a much more of a difficult task. But to your point, it is so much a part and embedded in technology and the solutions that we put forward, right? Which is, how do you think about cold starts when somebody comes in, and how is that tailored to that consumer's experience, or what we can understand of their identified taste through the tagging and the metadata that we've seen through the campaigns we're running, right? How do we think about also their other use cases and putting in cohorts that can fundamentally help drive discovery and
exactly.
And so those are places where the technology really begins to play a role. In the services, right, in the technology and the delivery, I would say maybe less in the kind of the front end in terms of like predicting the thing that's going to be the most successful show, and whether it's Squid Game or otherwise, right?
Right, and I'm looking at it from all sides. But I think it's interesting to distinguish that. Jeanne, what are you seeing from your customer side in terms of AI and predictive analytics, and even just know-how?
Yeah, so I think it's really all over the map, right? The more sophisticated the streaming service, the more data they have available to them, the more sophisticated the tools are that they're using to sort of understand their audiences. There was actually an article just recently that Neil Patel wrote, and it really dove deep into what Netflix uses and what they look at when they're really trying to understand what to serve up to their subscriber. And it's pretty eye-opening to see all of the things that they track and they understand about their users. And as an end consumer, I always say that's a little frustrating to me, because when I go onto my husband's Netflix account profile and I see mine, the stuff that we get is so incredibly different based on obviously what we're watching. But I actually want to see some of the stuff that I don't know that's available to me that's on his recommendation engine. So it's definitely not a perfect science, but I think there is so much content available. So how do you have the data to really understand what people want and what they want to watch next? We see some interesting data on the back end. We don't actually have any PPI, but we actually know we have numbers that go along with different pieces of content. So we can actually see through our through download data how much which titles are being downloaded the most, which we can give back to our partners, and they find that really interesting. And we can see what the super users are doing and what they're downloading and watching the most. So I'm sure that information feeds into sort of the things that they promote and how they promote them. But it's definitely a challenge.
Yeah, I'm the kind of person who likes to, shall we say, mess with algorithms. I'll frequently watch something for 30 seconds and then get out. And you'll get emails saying, do you want to finish this? It's like, no, I don't. I just want to torture you. So I've done that enough times. So full disclosure, I'm the guy who's messing with your algorithm. So let's talk about the skinny bundle. So that was supposed to save what we used to call the MSO business. And now we are seeing OTT bundles, including, of course, the Disney Plus bundle. So is that the way forward for OTT services? Are we looking at smaller slices for less money to entice people? Rivka, why don't you jump in on this?
I mean, I think that's definitely a possibility, right? I think bundling, people want discounts off of services. That's what the pay TV bundle was built off of for years. I do just want to make one sort of like a comment on top of that, is that I think the piece too, people actually have to have some sort of internet, right? And there's a payment and a price that's also coming from the MSOs. And so just sort of thinking through, you're not just paying for the SVOD services, you're also paying for your broadband or wireless or 5G or whatever, however you use to access those services. So it's also something that I think about a lot too, is how do you sort of look at the holistic price that people are paying, and is it yes, as a pay TV bundle, and I work on both the linear and the digital side, so I can see both. As that declines, are people really saving? Does the skinny bundle even exist? Is really sort of where I'm going, right? Because at the end of the day, the pipes are controlled by the same players, and you're paying one way or the other.
Right. So go ahead.
I was going to say, but I do think people appreciate the choice, right? Like, I think there's an element of and I think the other piece of SVOD that's appealing, and you're seeing this in the numbers, is also the in and out, right? You don't feel the same level of commitment that you do to a pay TV service, and which is a challenge, right? Is how do you manage that? And you sort of brought that up at the beginning, churn obviously being a big factor for people to look at.
Right, but of course you have a brand, HBO, which was for years attached to something that meant that as an enticement, free HBO, and still is used as a bundle in the telecom world, among others. Paul, as somebody who's been around this business a long time, what do you think of the skinny bundle? Is that a term we should just leave behind, or does that apply in your world? Because of course you're an unusual and unique super aggregator, wouldn't you say?
Yes, for sure. So most certainly, we can see, I mean, it's kind of amazing when you sit there and you look at where the cable penetration was in 2015 and where it is sitting today, right? Nearly around 71% of television households. And so it's still important, right? It still reaches 71% of television households. It's just a less important, right, in terms of our overall ecosystem. And I think, we've seen the rise of the Fubos, the Philos, and otherwise that are looking to address various components of that. Fubo leaning more into sports, right? Philo leaning more into the skinny bundle and those services. What I think we've seen at the same time is people have begun to supplement or trade off, right, from those cord nevers into this other ecosystem of, app-based development streaming services. We see in most television households, right, if you think about in the US, between Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Disney Plus, they have nearly 65% global share of SVOD services. If you add in the US, HBO Max and Hulu, you have nearly 75% concentration among 5 various players. What we see though, so what that means, right, a high degree of concentration in even those 300 services. The second thing is we're seeing a lot more in the third and fourth choice of their service. They're doing a lot more app hopping. So it's kind of like, hey, I came in for this show, and now it's very easy to unsubscribe. Now let me find the next show. Let me find the next show. So I think that's kind of the way of the world in terms of looking for people to kind of manage their budgets and try and figure out efficient ways to be able to get the content they want to watch. The reason Struum, right, exists, and the reason what we're trying to do is trying to really help those services that sit in the medium to long tail of the pipe and say, one is, here's a great way for you to discover. Here's a new front porch, right? And a new model with this credit-based model. The second piece is let's help you win the habit and discovery through the use of these recommendation engines. I can see from my own past history with Hulu that time spent on the platform will significantly increase when you have more to offer, right, in terms of recommendation engines. And the third is thinking about that app hopping experience, right? Is how do you actually become part of the habit, and not necessarily you can manage that app hopping experience all through our service. So that's some of the goals of what we have to be able to win the more, I would say, mind share, time share, economic share, right, of the pie for those medium to long tail services. And I think that's going to be part of the way the ecosystem kind of continues to develop and grow.
Yeah. And I want to get to, and again, you have nicely laid out a term of art for the passionate vertical, the super serving, passionate, engaged fans, which is something that certain, particularly independent filmmakers like, Ira Deutschman, among others, have used is really looking at how to super serve certain segments. And both you and ShortsTV, of course, ShortsTV is delivering content's largely been relegated in some cases to interstitial programming, and you offer this smorgasbord of content for a single subscription. So how do you both build on your audiences, which are very, very particular? Jeff, let's start with you on that question.
Sure, and it is a great question. It is part of the game that we play, right? So we have our super users, those people that know about us, that really love short film as a category, and they're going to be, watching us where we are, and we've got them. But then there's this subcategory, and like you said, there's that long tail, and you're hoping to get people to try you out or to hop on and hop off. And what we do, because of the nature of our content being short films, and we have so many of them, we can really curate specific categories that might not appeal necessarily to the short film fan, but might appeal to a fan of something else. A great example is it's Halloween, right? We did a big zombie-thon. So our content team needs to work hand in hand with our marketing team to go out there and find horror fans, zombie fans in particular, and take advantage of the season to try to market and say, hey, why don't you come and check out ShortsTV and watch this great zombie-thon that we've created that takes place on Halloween? And we do a big campaign building up to it. And maybe we get a bunch of people to jump in, try the service out. And then it's up to us to try to take that consumer viewer and migrate them to the next seasonal promotion that we've got going. And so it's really important that content works hand in hand with marketing to program seasonally and to pay attention to the people that are hopping in, hopping out, and making sure they know when their category or their interest is live within the platform or something that we're promoting heavily.
Right. And Paul, I mean, again, you're unique, but still, you still have to retain these users. And how do you build on that kind of model with this super aggregation play? Sure.
I mean, I think that the opportunity really is inherent to the business model, right? Which is, hey, if you, for example, like you're watching Climate of Change, we're promoting on the app right now, right? Which is coming from Tribeca. We might be able to say, hey, by the way, the next thing you may want to watch is Avicii's Time Stories from BBC Select. And then maybe the next thing is Jiro Dreams of Sushi coming from Magnolia, right? So there's the ability to actually build across brands that in ways that aren't necessarily served by other services. And I think about also, it's kind of funny, I just finished Squid Game this weekend. I know it's promoting another service, but it was a great show. But I also think about the fact that we have Kakao that's sitting on our service. And so Kakao is essentially the Hulu model for Korean broadcasters, right? You may not necessarily decide you want to subscribe and continue to watch like all Korean dramas, but you might find the next, your next favorite show from Korean dramas sitting in the service. And Struum can offer you that kind of front porch way to do it through a credit-based model versus having to make that full commitment, and really help them grow their base and help them grow the viewership, and then obviously some of the monetization opportunities. So that's some of the power of what we have on the platform to be able to serve those various interests.
That's great. And Rivka, obviously your HBO Max has moved into Europe in recent months. And one of the great things we've seen during the pandemic, starting with Money Heist on Netflix, is the incredible amplification of high quality global content, which of course is bringing other streamers here. NENT, the Nordic Entertainment Network, I believe, is starting very soon here in the US. So how do you as a massive entity look to grow your audience, based on various metrics?
Globally, or so actually we launched
particularly globally,
literally last week. Just to say how fresh that was. We launched in Latin America earlier this year. I think we've always, even pre HBO Max, HBO would bring in the international content that was created on the HBO services, and then vice versa. Obviously, something like a Game of Thrones was a gigantic global hit. I think the Squid Games and the Game of Thrones, though, are the unicorns, maybe is the right word. I think obviously there's other IP, like whether it's DC or Harry Potter or Disney, Star Wars, and Marvel, and et cetera, that can do it. But I think there's always this balance between global and local, which I've appreciated, that you want to target both sets of audiences, and you can't ignore local, as you expand, right? Like, it's very important to make sure you have the right local content for those markets, and in addition to, how can you create efficiency with your global content? So
yeah, that's a great answer, and kudos on these launches, because it's not easy extending this to any geography. Talking about local, we're going to get hyper local right now and talk about the last mile. And Jeanne, I want you to answer this. So, the last mile is always that physics challenge in delivering superior quality service to a viewer's device from any signal carrier's head end or central office. So what are you doing today to ensure that the OTT audience receives the high quality service, image, sound, and how much do the last mile issues impact your KPIs, and how are you measuring the impact it has on stream abandonment and churn, and who actually looks after this aspect of the OTT universe, which I always find is, from a quality of experience and quality of service, is hugely important.
Yeah. So, well, there's a lot to unpack right there. And some of these questions actually would be great to hear from Rivka and Jeff and others. But, the reality is that, what you saw from that slide that I pulled up originally is that, the number two thing that people care about is actually when they have a great piece of content, being able to watch it. They want to know that they can watch it without interruption. And, from a business model perspective, that's, kind of the Penthera wheelhouse. We kind of start where the CDN ends, and we take care of the issues that you can address during that last mile all the way up to the user's device. I mean, what's changed is sort of user behavior. We saw this a lot during the pandemic, but it's kind of persisted, which is, Penthera started out as a company that was focused on download technology. And because of that, we got a really interesting window into user behavior. And what we saw is that 80%, and still to this day, over 80% of people are actually watching downloaded content while they're connected. And what they're really looking for is just a better way to watch. What we see from our customers, we'll hear commonly from people, well, my rebuffering rates are only, 0.5% to 1% on average, according to Conviva. And if you think about that, that seems like a small number, but that's anywhere from like 18 to 36 seconds an hour. And so are your customers really going to stick around through that? And the data we've seen around that is no. People, and I have some stats around that too that I was going to share. Conviva says that 27% of people leave the stream after the first rebuffer, an additional 40% leave after a second rebuffer. So people really care, end users really care about the quality of experience. So, if you're a high-end service and you're asking somebody to pay a subscription price, you not only want to make sure you have great content for them, but you want to make sure they can watch it. And so, we have developed a whole suite of tools now that not only help people who want to download content, but also have a better experience during streaming. So we have some really innovative things that our customers are really excited about that are completely focused on how do we help you prevent rebuffering and video quality degradation during the stream across device types. And that's really a very important part of the experience too. If you want to get people to stick around, when they push that play button, they want to see it right away, and they want to make sure they can watch it all the way through to the end without interruption.
Yeah, it's a huge challenge, and it's not enough to consider things like 5G or whatever mobile edge compute or caching. This is a very particular issue, but the Conviva numbers are very, very interesting in terms of what people will tolerate, shall we say. Let's talk for a second about cord cutting. So, a term that's still around. It was supposed to eliminate the cost of your bills, largely driven by sports programming. But to the point of the title of this session, do you see households now looking to slim down their OTT bills? And if so, how would they do that and stick with what you're doing, which is a different aspect of an earlier question. Rivka?
I think as I sort of said, I think cord cutting is sort of a misnomer, right? Because you're really only cutting the pay TV cord. Right. You can't function without paying somebody for, at least in the United States, for internet service, right? So you're just sort of transferring your costs to a different ecosystem, probably the same providers, which is sort of I don't know if that's ironic or not, but there's something there, right? Like you're still paying Comcast or Charter or whomever. So I think it's just, that's why I think it's just right. It's become a very specific term, but I think as the ecosystem changes, and then I do think, as I said earlier, you're seeing too, and Paul, I think you addressed this also, is that people are getting comfortable going in and out, which is, creates greater challenges also. And I think that's why, going back to the bundling piece, there is desire to do bundling, right? Because if you can sort of either increase the value of your overall subscription, right, through getting multiple services, or B, somehow lock somebody in long enough, right, through either annual plans or whatever, right, then you can sort of extend, and hopefully they'll get the utility out of your services in that experience. But I think cord cutting is just more of a behavioral change than actually an economic change, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, I mean, Paul and Jeff, are you seeing, any resistance? I mean, because you serve, some very particular sort of niches and passion verticals, to use the phrase again. Do you have any data or anything anecdotally that would suggest that people are coming to you and maybe only adding a couple other services so they might win that battle to cut the cord? I mean, what sorts of research, Jeff, do you have?
Yeah. Well, people are managing their budgets for entertainment, but there's no shortage of people that are going to watch the entertainment. And we're all talking about just the most recent evolution of television in general. We're just, switching fish tanks, basically. And what we try to do is be everywhere where the consumer is, take advantage of teaser channels. People still call them social media networks. They're not. They're content distribution networks. People go there and they're watching content. So if you're a content provider and you're not in those spaces with a little teaser version of what your paid channel is, introducing new audiences to what your product is, then you're missing an opportunity. So we are traditional linear cable. We have a channel, ShortsTV, all over the world. We have many of them. And in addition to that, we maintain our social networks. We launch fast channels with light versions of shorts. Our channel on those fast networks. And we really are trying to be everywhere. And everywhere we are, we're trying to find the super users and upsell them to the more premium packages where they can watch anytime, anywhere, like, direct to consumer OTT apps will allow you to do. And we're also trying to activate those people that might be interested in whatever programming we're promoting at that current time. And with the power of digital marketing in today's day and age, you can also micro target people with those separate interests. So if you're promoting a show or a package that it has another special interest in mind, you can target them and see if you can't get them to bounce over to wherever they're watching to catch your version of the programming.
Exactly. And Paul,
just to build off of that, I think that two things. One, not from kind of the content provider or services provider perspective, right? What we believe is we're a great complement to their service, right? They will always serve their passions consumers better than we will, but what we're trying to do is find ways in which to have another front porch for people to identify and find this that next tranche of consumers. And what you see within our app, right, is that we have a dashboard that actually effectively communicates to somebody, hey, you're actually watching a lot of BBC Select. You should, our product, in the future will allow them to actually subscribe to BBC Select within the app. So we can help, these are the tools that can help them identify which services they should be subscribing to and using efficiently in terms of some of their managing for their budget and driving value within the household. The second piece, which has been really interesting, and I think something Rivka was talking about, is how I love the kind of the thought of the fact that it's maybe not an economic shift. I do believe that these traditional MVPDs and operators have found ways to kind of shift some of the economics, right, both into the broadband side, but also because they're also continuing to expand the offerings they put in front of consumers. And I think that's really where we can operate as a really great service to both the distributor and to the service, and be able to say, listen, if you are looking to try and find this next 60 services, just integrate with Struum, and we can expand your offering from what used to be maybe 10 or 12 or 15 to now, 75 to 80 because of the various services we can bring with us. And so I'm hopeful that that's part of the ways that they look to reduce attrition through the stickiness of some of our product, right, which in turn breeds success for our services. So that's how we think about kind of the development ecosystem.
Yeah, so I love the model, and my question to you is also, do you see yourself getting involved in spinning up or launching new channels as well?
At this moment, we're very focused. We have 60 services, and I like to say, while you have 60 services, what you don't think about is the challenge of trying to manage 60 different sets of metadata, file formats, and delivery, which in and of itself will take you a long time to stand up. We have about 10,000 assets on the service today, but nearly 40,000 probably under contract. So we're still ramping up. I think what you'll see in terms of the evolution, Chris, of our business model is seeing where these 60 services, where consumers are spending time, what some of the gaps are when we see where they are, and then be probably more targeted in trying to figure out who we bring on next, right? Just given the operational hurdles that we have. So I would say we'll probably be, the first part was most certainly trying and work with partners, build out a really big ecosystem, work with some incredible brands. This next piece is now how do we leverage the data internally to inform what steps we take next.
Yeah, and great answer, by the way, and just flawless, because if you're trying to raise money, listen to what Paul just said. Is a masterclass in how to answer a question about one's growth. So if you're interpreting at home, that means yes, they probably will spin up some things if it makes sense. So I don't want to put words in your mouth, Paul, but you're a master. Jeanne, since you're welcome. So Jeanne, on the back end, you've got a lot of incredible data, which I think would be very valuable in answering potentially the question about people either reducing or logicalizing their streaming budgets based on, and possibly based on, the behavior or behavioral data that you've articulated. What can you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, what we don't really see if they're switching out to other services. We don't have that kind of data. What we really do see, though, is if we have several customers that are tiered. So you have free, and then you have paid, the paid side of their business. And what's interesting is that if you can bring people in with the free side of the business, right, free content, and then obviously get them to upgrade and pay for the SVOD side for the things they really want. So it's a really great way to aggregate audience and then convert them to a paying subscriber. But you have to entice them with a lot of different tools. So it's not only great content, but again, people, if you look at people like Netflix and Amazon and Paramount Plus, they all use download technology as a way to get people to subscribe. You don't get download if it's free. If it's paid, you get as a premium tier subscriber. We think that that bar is going to get raised, that people are going to be more picky. People are going to be less apt to pay for things unless they really feel like they're getting not only great content, but a great quality of service. So what we're seeing from our customers is that there's a lot of pressure on that. There's a lot of pressure on delivering both great content and that quality of service. We see it through the data as well as through just their behaviors around what they need from us, what they want from us, what are they looking to do next to improve that quality of experience so that they can keep people on their service longer. And for the niche services, you asked the question earlier about, are people really going to look at the skinny bundle? I think one of the reasons people really appreciate OTT and SVOD services is that they have the choice. And we think that's going to continue. And for the smaller players, the niche players, having quality of experience is also going to be critical, just because they expect it. People have come to expect it, and it's almost like the way I look at television in general. There are things that we were willing, or even the internet, that we were willing to tolerate early on, but as we've moved along, the quality has gotten better and better and better, and that bar gets higher and higher. So how do you keep up, right? How do you continue to not only improve on the content side, but from a technology perspective to deliver what you need to? And when you're moving into international markets, it becomes even more challenging.
It's
I'll just
incredible.
say, to build off of what Jeanne said, a couple of things, and Chris, I wear two hats, also as the co-founder of First Light.
Yes.
And I couldn't agree more with what Jeanne's saying, which is, the consumer, price and like content, most certainly are the first two things that we always see almost universally in terms of choice. But then the consumer experience most certainly begins to play a role, right? Whether the ease of use and how you think about the discovery engines you've built, the front end development you've done in order to make the consumer experience as slick as possible, the quality, and we talked about buffering, discovery, right, and how we're serving those things up. I also think that what we're seeing, and I increasingly see this on my other side of the business, right, within First Light, is that people are also thinking about, how do I have an architecture that lets me integrate new features all the time and experiment? Because maybe the way I win the game is to be able to literally win the game sometimes in sports, right? Is the overlay of new stats, of new player experiences, the new betting experiences, right? And all those things that can help drive, both win the attention of consumers, win the time spent with consumers, and then win the economics with consumers. So I think it goes back to, as Jeanne's talking about, how you architect yourself is as important as like the thinking about 3-year strategy of how you're thinking about consumers and content spend. And so it's the marrying of those two things.
Exactly, because we really haven't talked specifically, for example, about sports or esports or anime, for example, or things that have massive fan bases that now include in-game betting, that include all kinds of social co-watching or second screen overlays that you would potentially want to see in certain services, including what Jeff is doing with ShortsTV. And so, it's a great point, on the feature side, because I think the gamification of OTT content will be just endemic, particularly for younger audiences in the coming years, if it's not already the case, because you have to compete with gaming services, you have to compete with social media itself, and that ain't easy. So we're talking, of course, about subscription services here, but I want to talk about FAST, which of course we heard a little bit about from Jeff. Where does FAST play in your consideration, if at all, for how to add value for the OTT dollar? And Jeff, thank you for what you were saying. Paul and Rivka and also Jeanne, I'm curious about how you're seeing FAST playing into what you're doing or what your customers are doing. Rivka, want to hear from you first.
Yeah, I think you have to look at all the different options, right? FAST, FOD, SVOD, international. I think the user experience piece is interesting too, and interactivity, and where is that all going as well? And how much is it also important to have consistent experiences, right? Like one of the challenges is, right, you go from app to app and you have to remember, how does this app work versus this app, and where do I find home and there, et cetera. And I don't know if there's, at some point value and more consistency too across services. But yeah, I think, if, obviously FAST is a very growing sector and definitely something to consider, as a strategy. Obviously we're focusing, primarily on HBO Max, which, we launched an AVOD tier earlier this year. And that's been a new experience for HBO, which, HBO, wasn't traditionally an ad service. So, constant experimentation and innovation.
Good answer. Absolutely. And we all knew it would happen someday. And at least I think Mr. Bucas once said that you might expect it, or words to that effect. Paul, talk about AVOD with respect to what you're doing with Struum, and also just how you see it mixing with SVOD in general.
Yeah. So, I think we all believe here, right, what we become smarter on is how can, essentially saying to consumers, choose the way you'd like to come on board, right? So that whether that is a fast channel experience, which is ad supported, and you just lean back and just watch whatever comes next, right? Or if it's on demand with AdVOD or TVOD or SVOD or otherwise, right? And we know that we can kind of, in the business side of this, right, we can effectively price ourselves to be consumer agnostic, right, to what platform somebody comes onto. So how do we think about it from a Struum perspective? We're currently not an ad-supported service. We think of ourselves as a complement, right? if you're looking to, for those that are SVOD services that are purely have SVOD rights, right, they're non-ad supported, we're the aggregation play for that. But we've also seen that there's a couple of services that have either developed around fast channels or have traditionally been AVOD driven services that are looking to experiment with our platform to see, hey, can I actually drive value in a non-ad supported environment? Will people, is there a willingness to pay on a per asset basis, right, through the use of the credit model, or is there a use, or will they also drive into a subscription? So we believe we're a complement to the AVOD ecosystem, and often we talk about ourselves being the fast channel equivalent for SVOD services for those that are looking to get into the business, because we can give them a platform to immediately deploy and scale and get to consumers in a way that doesn't require them to invest in the technology, the SAC cost, or otherwise that has become so prohibitive in the market entry phase.
Yeah, great answer. And Jeff, just quickly back to you. I know you talked a bit about what you're doing there, but don't you think that would be an interesting way to increase? We talked about teaser channels, for example. I would think, particularly on a global level, that leveraging fast might help you accelerate what you're doing.
Yeah, I do. I think it's a great idea, and it's a big part of our strategy. Paul's right. You got to meet the consumer where the consumer is. And the table stakes are much higher today. There's an expectation. Consumers have high expectations that you're going to meet them where they are and serve them up in an easy, something that's easy to use and easy to understand. And so with Fast or with other opportunities to just get our brand and our product in front of new audiences, we take those opportunities very seriously and try to work them into the strategy. With Fast specifically, like we'll find that the same household will have a linear traditional cable viewer and also a fast viewer can exist in the same household, but they're usually different people, but both things exist in that household. So we might meet one with a version of our channel here that is a little bit different and tailored to the user that we know is using that type of a service or platform. And this product might be a little bit different with regard to, ratings or what we're programming, stuff like that, watershed events, things like that. Mm-hmm. So our goal is to introduce them to what we're doing and tell them why we're doing it and see if we can't convert them into a super fan.
Yeah, and which makes an incredible amount of sense. And of course, Rivka very poignantly pointed out that you have behemoth ISPs who are even like Comcast with Xumo. Have some of these services or at least interests. We've all seen the success of Pluto TV in the last year and particularly going international. So in the same household, you might have somebody watching HBO Max and then grandma's watching Pluto TV to see the Andy Griffith Show. Who knows? And why not? Jeanne, I'm sure you've
one thing to add on that. I was going to say, you started the panel by asking questions about AI. And I think that what we're seeing to see in the next phase of AI, right, or the application of AI is against fast channels and really the development of of moving from VOD to live with a recommendation engine driven approach, right? Like that's like where the technology is kind of leading in terms of the, bringing it back to your first question.
Yeah, and we've seen some folks who are trying to do that, particularly people we both know in Sweden, for example, like PlayPilot. I think that's it's to me always been a holy grail to really see what you can offer people across services, even globally, on a given basis. So in the time we have left, I'm actually going to bring this back home to the origins of TV, and that is by asking this question, which is, in the end, will so-called subscription fatigue lead audiences back to free terrestrial TV? Will the antenna become the Apple Watch of 2022? Jeanne, I'm sure you've got very specific data on this that you could probably divulge. What do you think?
No.
I'd say that's a global no, or is that a no that you don't have the data?
Well, no, we actually don't have data.
Okay. But well, what do you think then?
But I really don't see that happening. I think that streaming and OTT is here to stay. I think, listen, certain parts of the world, they're still watching using an antenna. I don't think people are going to move back to that. It's a very crappy way to watch television. So that's my thought on that.
Yeah. Well, Paul, what do you think? Because I have my own opinions. Go ahead.
So it's crazy enough. Actually, I bought a new TV just a few months ago, and I bought an HD TV, the HD antenna that is snapped on the back of the thing. And I'm like, great. Now, when there's a presidential debate or just some other news event that I want to catch up on for a local news event as well, which we know it's the important broadcast, I have it accessible to me. And so, do I believe that and broadcast, we also know through an HD delivered antenna is actually a really great experience. Actually, broadcast quality is like the standard, right? So that's kind of
thank you.
The most interesting things too. How do we use it? What we use it for, right? Like I do believe for local sports and local news, maybe those are the things I use it for. There's a question of content quality and kind of audience reach. I think that has to be addressed within the broadcast universe, right? In order to kind of drive audiences back into what was the traditional prime time. I also think that if you look at the windowing strategies that most of these broadcasters are now employing, it's available somewhere else pretty quickly. So again, allowing for consumers to make the choice. So, whether or not people actually migrate back, I don't think so. I think that's a long-term trend. We've seen the decline of broadcasts. When I was there at ABC, we were watching 7% annual declines across broadcasts. I'm sure it's accelerated since then. But it still plays a very important role in the overall ecosystem.
Yeah. So Rivka, and for those who don't know, I mean, those of us techies, and I'm sure a lot of streaming media readers know, or maybe not, that for many, many years, the benchmark signal, the reference signal for US broadcast was NBC for a very long time. And then somewhere around 2000 or 1999, it became HBO, believe it or not. So what do you think, Rivka, about my my sort of prognostication about the antenna?
Well, I think that the one piece is that, and we've talked about this a little bit, is that people also want to watch it where they want to watch it, right? And that's the only problem with the antenna. I do think, to Paul's point, I'm sure that there'll be use cases where people will appreciate the antenna and use it for watching debates, but I think people are too comfortable with being able to take their services with them wherever they go, whether it's through their phone or iPad or even, like, I know lots of people who travel with like Roku sticks, and then just plug it in, or Fire TV or whatever, whatever their, connected TV streaming device of choice is. So I think I will say a no, in the sense that I think people are too comfortable with having choice, not only of what they want to watch, but choice in where they want to watch as well.
Excellent. Obviously. So go ahead, Jeff, please.
Just to add to it, I said I will find the easiest and cheapest way to watch what I want to watch. I still use my HD antenna to watch football games, stuff that's on that I don't want to, pay for Sunday ticket or whatever. I just fire up the antenna. It's great broadcast. So I think short term we may see a little bump in antenna use, HD antenna use, but over time I think it'll go down to zero as everything gets easier and sports starts to be easier to get to, and like local things start to be easier to get.
Yeah, I think, well, first of all, anyone who knows the technology knows that that's your original source signal is coming from an HD antenna. It will be the highest quality signal you could receive. And I think certainly for sports, it'll happen. It may be like the 10-gram vinyl thing for the hip Wazee, but that's sort of where I'm looking. I just wanted to throw that one in there. And I'm sorry we didn't get to, but maybe we have 1 minute for Corey Sanders's question. Do you think cable companies can rebound from overpricing of cable and come up with packages to compete with subscriptions? And do you believe customers will be enticed? Paul.
I think, yeah, I think that through all the various conversations we're having, the cable operators are looking for ways to make their product more sticky. That includes the bundling or offering of services like the ones we're talking about here today, including Struum. So I believe they'll figure it out.
Yes, Rivka, what do you say?
Yeah, yes, as I
definitely
think that, right, definitely, yeah.
Yeah, Jeff.
Content is king. It can't be said enough. If you've got stuff that people want to watch, you'll find a way to get it to them.
Amen. And Jeanne, what do you think to Corey's question?
I completely agree. I think that's exactly right, that people are going to find a way to watch what they want to watch, where they want to watch it.
I agree. So we've got a lot of great pull quotes from this panel. If you're watching this, whenever you're watching it, because it could be on demand. I think Paul, though, kind of won with passionate verticals and also meet the people where they want to come on board. But I think there was a lot of great stuff here. And by the way, if you're watching this panel 10 years from now, and you thought that we were referring to the pandemic being over, Well, it's not over. It's just that the massive lockdown phase of the pandemic was over. So if you're watching this in 2031, just remember that. Okay, thank you.
Terrific discussion as always when you moderate, Chris. I really appreciate it. And
It's
thanks
the
so much for your
people.
contributions. And I love the fact that at various points during that discussion, I kept thinking, we've got a panel about that later this week too. We've got a panel about that later this week. In 30 minutes, we'll be back with a panel about the importance of localized content, which gets to that whole question about local news, local weather, and I'm sure antennas will come up in that discussion. But again, thanks to everyone. Our Amazon gift card winner is Linda Crossman. So Linda, watch out for your email. Thanks again to Conviva, Limelight Networks, Signient, Video Guys, and Penthera for sponsoring. And again, look out for the next session in about 30 minutes. So long, everyone.